Alright, this is an original story from Tales Fair, and in this one, someone finally stopped playing nice and protected what really mattered. Okay, let's get into it.
My dad pushed my 9-year-old daughter at the Christmas table. "That seat is for my real grandkid. Get out!" She hit the floor in front of the whole family, but everyone stayed silent. I didn't cry. I said 4 words. My mom dropped her wine glass. My dad went pale. The sound of my daughter's knee hitting the floor wasn't the worst part. It was the way everyone went quiet. Not the normal quiet you get when someone says, "Let's say grace," and everyone pretends they aren't already chewing. This was the kind of silence that has weight, like a blanket, like a verdict. I'm Leah. I'm a single mom, which means I've perfected 2 skills: pretending I'm fine and carrying way too much in one trip. I used to think I could handle my family as long as I stayed small enough, smile enough, apologize for taking up air. Christmas Eve at my parents' house was my annual reminder that staying small is still taking up too much space if the wrong person decides you don't belong. The dining room looked like a catalog got into a fistfight with a nutcracker. Garland on everything. Candles that smelled like winter pine, which is a polite name for tree sap and lies. My sister Chelsea had insisted on matching sweaters. Hers was cute, of course. Mine looked like I'd lost a bet. My daughter Maisie kept tugging the sleeves of hers down over her hands because she was 9 and the sweater was made for a child Chelsea described as a petite angel. Translation: not my kid. At the head of the table, my dad held court the way he always did. Fork like a scepter. His laugh big and loud and a little too pleased with itself. Chelsea's daughter Poppy was perched in the seat closest to him, the one everyone treated like holy ground. The seat that always ended up with the best plate and the first refill. The seat that somehow belonged to family more than the rest of us did. Poppy is 5, blonde curls, big eyes, and a talent for getting what she wants with a single sigh. Everyone calls her Grandpa's girl, like that's a title you can win. Maisie watched all of it with the careful face of a kid who's learned to read rooms before books. It makes you proud, and it breaks your heart at the exact same time. Dad's mood had been festive. That's the nicest way to say it. He'd made one of his little comments when I walked in. "Well, look who made it," he said, like I'd shown up to a party I wasn't invited to. I smiled anyway, because that's what you do when you're trained. Smile. Make it easy. Don't give him a reason. Then at dinner, he started in with the jokes. "Blood's thicker than eggnog," he said, lifting his glass toward Chelsea like they were sharing a private punchline. Chelsea laughed too hard. Mom laughed too quietly. Aunt Linda laughed like she was paid by the chuckle. Maisie didn't laugh. She just kept her hands folded in her lap, like she'd learned that laughter could be used against you. I clocked it, swallowed it, kept my eyes on my daughter. And then, because my family loves tradition, we got to the part where everyone pretends it's normal. Maisie stood up with her little paper place card. Chelsea had made them, with glitter and everything. And she walked toward the table with this small, hopeful smile. She wasn't trying to steal anyone's crown. She just wanted to sit down. She wanted to be included, like kids do, before the world teaches them that belonging is something you have to earn. She got close to the special seat, not even because she wanted it, because Chelsea had put her card there, which is almost funny in a dark way, like the universe has a wicked sense of timing. Dad saw the card, saw Maisie's hand, saw her about to pull out the chair, and something in his face snapped. "That seat is for my real grandkid," he barked. Maisie froze. The smile fell off her face so fast it was like someone pulled a string. "Get out," Dad added, like my 9-year-old had tried to rob him, and then he shoved her. Not a gentle nudge, not a move along, a shove. A grown man's hand on a child's shoulder, pushing her back like she was a problem to be solved. Maisie stumbled. Her foot caught the rug. Her knee hit the hardwood with a sound that made my stomach flip. And then, silence. Forks paused midair. Someone's napkin fell. Aunt Linda made a tiny, "Oh," like Maisie had spilled a drink, not been shoved to the floor. Chelsea didn't move. She just stared like this was a scene in a show she hadn't asked to watch, but might still enjoy. Mom's face went blank. Practiced. Like she'd been training for this exact moment her whole life. My daughter looked up at me, not crying yet, just confused, like her brain couldn't make the math work. I was already moving before I realized I was moving. I helped her get up. Her body was tense, vibrating with shock. Her knee was already turning red. Her breath hitched in tiny little bursts. Her fingers latched onto my sleeve like she needed something solid. I glanced around the table. 20-something people. Adults. Family. Witnesses. Not one person stood up. Not one person said, "What the hell is wrong with you?" Not one person reached toward my daughter. Not even my mother. My ears rang. My vision tunneled. And then, in the middle of that ringing, a thought landed in my head with perfect, icy clarity. This ends. I leaned down close to Maisie and murmured, "I've got you," because I needed her to hear at least one adult in that room say something true. Then I reached down with my free hand and grabbed my bag. I didn't make a speech. I didn't ask for permission. I didn't wait for anyone to suddenly grow a spine. I pulled out a folder and set it on the table in front of my parents, right between the cranberry sauce and the lie they'd been feeding me my entire life. I looked at my dad, then my mom, and I said 4 words. "You've been served." For a second, nobody moved. Not even my father. Then his hand went to the folder like it belonged to him, the same way everything else in that house always did. He flipped it open. His eyes scanned the first page. My mother was still holding her wine glass, frozen halfway between the table and her mouth, like time might pause if she didn't blink. Then my father's face drained of color, and my mother's wine glass slipped from her fingers and hit the table with a sharp, ugly clink before tipping over. My father wasn't angry pale. Not, "How dare you, pale." Pale like recognition. Pale like fear. Then I walked out with my daughter, and behind me, for the first time all night, the silence broke. Not with comfort, with panic. To understand why I had that folder in my bag, you need to know what my life has looked like in their house. Because people love to ask questions like, "Why didn't you just cut them off?" As if family is a light switch. As if you can just flick it off and walk away without hearing their voices in your head for the next decade. Growing up, my sister Chelsea was sunlight. I was weather. Chelsea got praised. I got corrected. Chelsea got, "You're such a star." I got, "Don't be so sensitive." Chelsea got, "Come sit by me." I got, "Move, you're in the way." Dad's favorite trick was saying the cruel thing like it was a joke. Like if he smiled while he said it, it didn't count. "Where'd you get that hair?" he'd say when I was a teenager. "Must have been the mailman." Everyone would laugh the way people laugh when they're terrified of being the next target. Mom would give me that look that meant, "Don't start. Don't make this worse. Don't ruin dinner." Chelsea became the proof my dad wanted. Proof the marriage was fine. Proof he wasn't being played. Proof he was the kind of man who could produce a real daughter. I became the question mark. My dad never got a test. That would have required admitting he might be wrong. Much easier to punish me for the suspicion and call it righteousness. And my mother let him. That's the part people don't understand until they've lived it. A father can be cruel because he's cruel. A mother has to decide over and over to watch it happen. My grandfather, Dad's father, was the only person on that side who made me feel like I belonged. He wasn't warm exactly. He was one of those old-school men who thought emotions were for people who didn't have work to do. But he'd pat my shoulder and say, "You're smart. Don't let anyone dull that." He'd slip me a card on my birthday with a crisp bill inside and tell Chelsea loudly to stop spending money like it was a hobby. When he died, the house shifted. Not with grief, with ownership. Dad became in charge of everything. Papers, accounts, decisions. I was told, very casually, that there wasn't anything set aside for me. That's the phrase Mom used, like she was talking about leftovers. There wasn't anything set aside, she said, eyes on the kitchen counter, voice flat, like she was reading from a script. I believed her. Or I tried to, because the alternative was admitting that my parents could look at me and decide I was not worth honesty. And then, 2 weeks before Christmas, I babysat Poppy, the golden grandchild, the one who gets the seat, the first cookie, the special plate. Chelsea had texted me, "Can you watch Poppy for an hour? I have a work call." Work call. Sure. Chelsea works from home in the same way I do yoga when I stretch for the remote. I said yes because Poppy is 5 and she likes me in the way kids like adults who don't make them audition for affection. Also because I'm still infected with that old family disease. Maybe if I'm useful, they'll treat me better. Chelsea left. The house was quiet. Poppy played with dolls. I cleaned up wrapping paper because apparently my role in that family is helper, not person. Chelsea's laptop sat closed on the coffee table. Asleep. Innocent. Not my business. Poppy, however, saw it like a shiny forbidden toy. She flipped it open like she'd done it 100 times. The screen glowed. A password box popped up. And Poppy, tiny fingers, serious face, typed the password. Like it was her name. Like it was a game. I froze, because kids don't know passwords unless someone lets them. I walked over and said gently, "Hey, sweet pea, that's not a toy." I reached to close it. And that's when the laptop woke up fully. A PDF popped back onto the screen like the computer had been holding its breath, and right at the top, in bold letters, was my grandfather's name. I stopped breathing. I sat down. Not because I was being nosy, because my body understood something before my brain did. This matters. I skimmed fast and focused. The way you read when you're afraid of what you'll find, but more afraid of what you already suspect. There were headings, official-looking ones. Trust. Beneficiaries. My throat tightened, and then I saw it. My full legal name. Not a nickname. Not Leah, maybe. Not other child. My name. Printed. Clean. Undeniable. I scrolled again. Carefully. Like if I moved too fast, the truth would disappear. A page titled Distribution Summary was half visible. One line jumped out at me because it had a date I remembered in my bones. The month I'd asked for help with a deposit on a safer apartment after a break-in. The month Dad had laughed and said, "You should have made better choices." The month Mom had shrugged and said, "We can't." That same month, Chelsea had suddenly announced she was so blessed and bought a new SUV. I stared at that line until the numbers blurred. Then I did the only smart thing I've ever learned to do in that family. I took a photo. Just one. Clear. Trust name. My name. The part that mattered. I closed the laptop. Poppy asked if she could watch cartoons. I smiled at her like my world hadn't just tilted. "Yes, honey," I said. "Pick one." That night, after Chelsea came home and chirped, "Everything fine?" I said yes, because I needed time. And because confronting people like my parents without a plan is like walking into a hurricane with an umbrella. 2 days later, I sat across from a woman named Rebecca Shaw in a small law office that smelled like coffee and competence. I slid my phone across the desk. Rebecca studied the photo for all of 5 seconds before her expression changed. Not shock, not confusion, recognition. The kind of look you give when you've seen this pattern before. "If your name is on it," she said, voice calm, "trustees don't get to decide you don't count." I swallowed. Even if they think whatever they think," Rebecca cut in. "Ink beats opinions." I didn't call my parents. I didn't ask Chelsea. I didn't clear the air. I let Rebecca do what she does, quietly. And when Rebecca handed me a folder a few days later, I didn't open it in the parking lot like a movie character. I sat in my car and stared at it like it was a bomb. Because it was. Not the explosive kind, the life-changing kind. For days, that folder lived in my bag. I took it out, put it back, took it out, put it back. I told myself, after the holidays, not at Christmas, not in front of everyone. Don't be dramatic. Don't ruin things. I told myself I could get through one more dinner. I told myself I could keep the peace. And then my father put his hands on my child, and waiting stopped being a choice. Maisie was quiet in the car. Not the normal quiet where she's plotting how to convince me that dessert counts as a food group. This was the kind of quiet that scares you as a parent because you can hear your child's little brain trying to build meaning around something that should never have happened. Her knee was starting to puff up. She sniffed hard, like she was trying not to cry, like crying would make her a problem. I hated them for that, for teaching her that. I kept my voice gentle. "Hey, look at me. You didn't do anything wrong." She stared out the window. He doesn't like me." My throat tightened. "That's about him, baby. Not you." Maisie's voice got smaller. "Is it because I'm not real?" There it was. The poison. Passed down like an heirloom. I pulled the car over for a second because I needed my hands steady. "No," I said, and I made the word a wall. "You are real. You belong with me. Always." She nodded like she wanted to believe me, like belief was a thing she had to earn. I drove the rest of the way home with my jaw clenched so hard my teeth hurt. Now, because I know some of you are already asking, what was in the folder? Here it is. The payoff. The thing I didn't explain at the table because my family doesn't deserve speeches. That folder wasn't a threat. It was legal service. It was a court petition to force a full accounting of my grandfather's trust. Every dollar in, every dollar out, every signature, every transfer. It asked the court to freeze further distributions until the truth was on paper where nobody could forget it. It asked to remove my parents as the people controlling it, because what I'd found wasn't confusion. It was diversion. It included exhibits, my name on the trust, the distribution lines that matched the sudden miracles in Chelsea's life, and the trust administrator information so nobody could pretend it was fake. And that cover page? That's why my father went pale. Because he recognized it. Because he knew exactly what he'd been doing. Because he knew I wasn't guessing. I was done. My phone started ringing before I even pulled into my driveway. Chelsea first, then Mom, then Dad. Over and over. Chelsea left a voicemail that was half rage, half panic. "What did you do? Are you insane? You're ruining everything!" Mom's voicemail was a sobbing whisper. "Leah, please, please don't do this. Think about..." As if I hadn't been thinking about my child's knee hitting hardwood. Dad's voicemail was cold. No yelling, no theatrics. Just this. "You're not taking anything from this family." I didn't call back. I got Maisie settled on the couch in her leggings and an old hoodie, pressed an ice pack to her knee, and made cocoa with extra marshmallows because sometimes parenting is just knowing when to add sugar to pain. We watched a Christmas movie on the couch, Maisie tucked against my side like she was afraid the world might shove her again if she moved. My phone kept buzzing. Family group chat. Exploding. Aunt Linda. How could you do this on Christmas? A cousin I barely spoke to. I saw what happened. Are you okay? Chelsea. Posting pictures of Poppy sitting in the special seat with a caption like it was cute, like it was normal. And then the smear started. Chelsea posted on Facebook, "Some people will destroy a family for money." No names, just enough for everyone to point. People reacted with little heart emojis like betrayal was inspirational content. My aunt messaged me, "You've always been dramatic, Leah." My uncle wrote, "Call your father and apologize." Nobody wrote, "Is Maisie okay?" That told me everything I needed to know about the family I'd been trying to keep. Then my dad sent one text that was meant to scare me into silence. A message that had been sitting in his back pocket my whole life, waiting for a moment where it would hurt the most. "You want court? Fine. Tell the judge why you should be getting my father's inheritance if you're not even mine." My stomach flipped. Not because I believed him, because I knew what he was trying to do. He wasn't defending money. He was defending his right to punish. And he was going to try to drag my daughter into it too. I stared at the text until my hands stopped shaking. Then I looked down at Maisie, asleep on the couch. And I whispered, to her and to myself, "He doesn't get to write our story anymore." 2 days after Christmas, Rebecca Shaw forwarded me a PDF titled Response Plus Motion. Nothing like opening your inbox and finding a document that sounds like a sci-fi sequel. Response 2. Motion harder. I was standing in my kitchen in yesterday's sweatshirt, watching Maisie eat cereal like nothing in the world had happened, because that's what kids do when they're trying to be brave. She was 9. She wasn't crying anymore. She was doing that quiet thing where children decide emotions are dangerous because adults act like they are. My phone buzzed again. Rebecca texted, "Open it. Call me when you're on page 2. Page 2 was where they went for my throat. Not just the real grandchildren nonsense. Though yes, that was there, bolded like a slogan on a billboard. They were asking the court to dismiss my petition and sanction me for bad faith and harassment. Sanction. Like I was a misbehaving dog. I could practically hear my father narrating, "See? Even the judge thinks you're dramatic." My stomach dropped so hard I had to lean on the counter. Rebecca called before I could. "Leah," she said, voice calm in that way people are calm when they've seen this movie and already know the ending. "They're going to try to make this about whether you're real family. Don't take the bait." My throat tightened. They're really doing this. "They're desperate," she said. "Desperate people throw sand." I swallowed. "If he says I'm not his, should we do a test?" There was a pause, just long enough for my shame to try to crawl up my neck. Then Rebecca said, "Not for court, not for them. Your name is on the trust. Trustees don't get to rewrite it based on suspicion." I stared at Maisie, who was carefully lining up her spoon and bowl like she could make the morning behave if she made the objects behave. "I don't know if I wanted the truth," I said quietly. Rebecca had me come in that afternoon. She slid a printout toward me. "Initial snapshot from the trust administrator," she said. I read the top line and my ears went hot. Trust principal at grandfather's death. $480,000. The next line made me blink. Intended split. 50% Leah and 50% Chelsea. I sat back hard in the chair. "My share," my voice cracked. I cleared my throat. "So, $240,000. Rebecca nodded once. Then she tapped the bottom line. Current trust balance, $38,000. My brain refused to accept it for a full second, like it was waiting for someone to laugh and say, "Just kidding." "That can't be right," I whispered. Rebecca didn't flinch. "It's right. Now we show the court how it happened." She slid a page titled "Distributions Trustee Approved" across the desk. It wasn't the whole file, just the highlights. Enough to make me sick. Not enough to pin it on paper. Not yet. And then I saw where my life went. Not in a poetic way, in a line item way. We didn't go through every single transaction because nobody needs a 90-minute documentary about my parents' creativity with other people's money. Rebecca highlighted the big ones, the kind that tell a story even if you don't understand finance. Chelsea's down payment, a vehicle purchase, medical, education. The categories were almost insulting. Like if you label theft family support, it becomes wholesome. "They told me they couldn't help me," I said, and I heard myself the way you hear your own voice on a recording. Too calm, too controlled, like if I let the emotion out it would drown me. Rebecca didn't say "I'm sorry." She didn't say "that's awful." She didn't perform empathy. She handed me the reality like a weapon. "They took money earmarked for you," she said, "and spent it like a family slush fund." I looked down at my highlighted name on the trust paperwork. My name printed in clean black ink, like it had always been real, like it had always been there. And that's when my phone buzzed with a text from Aunt Linda. "Why are you doing this to your father?" I stared at it and actually laughed. A single sharp sound. "Because sure, Linda, I'm doing this. Not the people who moved hundreds of thousands of dollars like it was loose change." That week, Maisie asked me something while I was brushing her hair. "Do I have to say sorry?" The question landed like a punch. "Sorry for what?" She stared at her own reflection like she didn't want to see herself too clearly. "For making Grandpa mad." I set the brush down. "No," I said, and I made it firm enough to become a floor under her feet. "You don't apologize for someone else hurting you." Her shoulders eased like she'd been carrying that thought around in her backpack. That night, I made a decision I should have made years ago. No visits, no calls, no surprise drop-bys. Boundaries so hard you could trip over them. They stole my money. They don't get my daughter, too. The first hearing happened fast. Emergency, preservation, freeze. The kind of court appearance where you don't wear your cute outfit, you wear something that says, "I am here to be taken seriously, and also I own an iron." Janine Keller, my parents' attorney, walked in like she owned the building. Ms. Keller was polished and bright-eyed, smiling with her teeth but not her soul. She argued real grandchildren. She argued intent. She argued family understanding. Rebecca asked for two things: preserve records, freeze movement. The judge granted both and set a deadline for the full file. Every statement, every transfer record, and the trustee approvals behind them. My father's jaw tightened. Chelsea's eyes flicked to him. My mother stared at the table. On the walk out, my father finally looked at me, like he was trying to decide if I was his daughter or his enemy, and I thought dryly, "Bold time to start considering the relationship, Dad." Maisie was quiet when I got home. Not, "I'm fine," quiet. The other kind. The kind where a kid is trying to decide what the world just taught her. While I made dinner, she said very softly, "Are we in trouble?" I swallowed the rage down like a stone. "No, baby. We're safe." Between hearings, the real proof started arriving. Not all at once. Paperwork arrives the way consequences arrive. Steadily, without mercy. A week later, Rebecca just sent me a message that said, "Come in. Now." I sat across from her again, and she slid one page onto the desk like it was a loaded gun. "Look at the approvals column," she said. I scanned down. Signatures, initials, authorizations. And then my eyes landed on it. My mother's signature. Not once. Multiple times. My stomach dropped. I didn't hear the next sentence Rebecca said. I just stared at the ink, at the curve of my mother's handwriting, at how casually she'd signed off on it, like it was routine. I thought it was just my father, but she knew. She knew the whole time. I didn't cry. I felt steady. The next hearing felt like walking into a room where everyone already knows the secret, and you're the last one pretending it isn't there. Ms. Keller tried one last time to pivot to biology. Rebecca didn't even blink. She kept it simple. My name is on the trust. Trustees have duties, signatures prove intent, and family rumor is not a legal defense. The judge didn't give a speech. He gave a decision. I win. My share was $240,000. The court ordered my parents to pay it back plus interest, plus my legal costs, plus penalties, $368,000 total. My father looked stunned. Chelsea went stiff. My mother didn't move at all. I didn't feel victorious. I felt lighter. Not happy, just lighter. Winning in court doesn't feel like fireworks. It feels like your body finally lets go of something it's been clenching for years, and then you realize you don't know how to stand without it. When I got home, Maisie was at the table doing homework, tongue sticking out in concentration like we were just a normal Tuesday family, like a judge hadn't just put a price tag on my parents' betrayal. I tried to make dinner. I tried to act like I wasn't shaking. I tried to be the version of myself who believes closure is a real thing. Then I went into my room and saw the box. Small, plain, ugly, the paternity kit. Ms. Keller's little gotcha, mailed to me weeks ago like a dare wrapped in cardboard. Rebecca had told me, flat, firm, don't touch it. Not for court, not for them. Don't let them drag you into the mud and call it truth. And I hadn't. I'd let paper beat rumor. I'd let ink beat cruelty. But now the case was decided, and the question was still sitting there like a live wire. I stared at it long enough to hear my father's voice in my head. Real grandkid, real family, real. And then I thought of Maisie's knee on hardwood. I grabbed the box, not because I owed anyone proof, because I was tired of carrying doubt like it was my birthright. Inside, everything was neatly arranged. Of course it was. My father didn't just want to be right. He wanted the packaging to match. His sample was already included. That part almost made me laugh. Not funny laugh. The other kind. The kind you do when someone's audacity is so committed, it becomes art. I didn't read the instructions. I didn't light a candle. I didn't make it a moment. I swabbed, sealed, and shoved it back into the mail like I was returning something that never should have been sent. Then came the waiting. You'd think waiting would be calm after court. It wasn't. Every day I checked for updates like a compulsive habit. Every day I told myself it didn't matter. Every day it mattered anyway. Maisie kept processing in her own quiet way. The first few nights she hovered near me like she was bracing for another shove from the universe. Then one evening, as I tucked her in, she said very casually, I don't want to go there again. No tremble. No question. A decision. And something in my chest cracked open. Pride, grief, relief, all stacked together. The email came on a Tuesday, because life loves dropping grenades into ordinary days. I opened it alone at my kitchen counter, read it once, twice, 3 times, like the words might rearrange themselves into something kinder. Biological match. I'm his daughter. My first feeling wasn't relief. It was fury so clean it made me cold, because it meant the suspicion was wrong and the cruelty was still deliberate. It meant they could have ended this years ago with 1 test and 1 ounce of decency. They didn't want clarity. They wanted a license. So I sent the results. To both of them. No long message, no explanation, no invitation to respond. Just, you built my whole life around a lie. Here's the truth. Then I blocked them, and I thought that would be the end of it. It wasn't. A week later, my doorbell rang, and I looked through the peephole and saw my mother standing there alone, hands clasped like she was about to ask for forgiveness the way you ask for a favor. Maisie was at school. Thank God. I opened the door just enough to make it clear I was listening, not welcoming. My mother's eyes were swollen, not in a dramatic way, in a tired way, like she'd been crying at the mirror and losing. She didn't start with, "I'm sorry." She started with strategy. "Your father, he's been different," she said. "He asked about Maisie." I said nothing. "He wants to see her," she rushed on. "He wants to be a family. Now that we know. Like love is a subscription that activates when the lab confirms you qualify." Then she finally cracked, and the truth came out in the only way it ever comes out after years of silence. Messy and too late. "Before you were born," she said, voice shaking, "I slept with someone else. Just once. Your father found out, or he suspected. Honestly, I don't even remember which came first anymore. But from that moment on, he decided you might not be his. And I let him treat you like a question mark because I was guilty. I thought I deserved it. And somehow, you ended up paying for it instead. I thought I was doing what I had to do," she continued. "And now we can fix it. We can—" I waited until she finished. Then I said quietly, "No." Her face tightened like she didn't understand the language. So I made it plain. "It shouldn't have mattered," I told her. "You were my mother whether I was his or not, and you chose him anyway." She tried to speak. I didn't let her. "My father doesn't get Maisie now because a test says real," I said. "You don't get to come back because the story is comfortable again." I told her the only thing she was leaving with was the knowledge that she'd been wrong. Then I closed the door. That night, Maisie asked me, steady and small, "We're not going back, right?" I sat beside her on the couch, close enough that she didn't have to be brave alone. "No," I said. "We're not." And this time it wasn't a promise. It was a boundary. 4 months later, the money hit my account. All of it. They sold the house. The one they'd owned outright. The one my father used to call his legacy. Turns out legacy doesn't mean much when a judge orders restitution and interest and fees, and there's nowhere else to pull from. The sale covered it. Every dollar that was taken. Every dollar the court added on top. When the wire cleared, I didn't cry. I didn't celebrate. I paid off what I needed to, set up Maisie's future, and closed the door on the rest. They're broke now. Not, we need to budget broke. Downsized, borrowed, quiet broke. The kind of broke where relatives stop calling and excuses stop working. We're no contact. Not the dramatic kind. The peaceful kind. Maisie laughs more. She sleeps through the night. She doesn't ask about real anymore. She knows where she belongs. I don't flinch when my phone buzzes. I don't brace myself at holidays. Our life is smaller and somehow so much bigger. They lost their money. They lost their story. They lost control. And I got my life back. So what do you think? Did I go too far or not far enough? Let me know in the comments and subscribe for more. At Christmas, my parents turned away my 11-year-old at the door. She had to walk home alone carrying every gift she'd brought and had to spend Christmas in an empty house. When I found out, I didn't shout. I took action. 5 hours later, their lives started to unravel. I got home late on Christmas night expecting an empty house, because my kid was supposed to be at my parents' place. Big dinner, cousins, and the sleepover she'd been talking about for days like it was the main event of the century. Instead, the first thing I noticed was the smell. Something burnt. Not toast got away from you burnt. More like someone tried to make something special, and it didn't go the way they planned. I stepped into the kitchen and saw it immediately. A pan on the stove with something dark in it. A plate on the table. A little trail of crumbs like someone had been moving around quietly, trying not to make noise. And then I saw what made my stomach drop all the way through the floor. Her shoes. Her coat. My 11-year-old was home. "Emma?" I called. "Hey," she answered right away. She was sitting at the kitchen table in the same clothes she'd worn when I dropped her off earlier, shoulders tucked in tight like she was trying to take up less space in her own house. Not crying, not dramatic, just small. I stared at her for a second, trying to make reality line up. "You're supposed to be at Grandma and Grandpa's," I said. I know. Her voice was too flat, like she'd practiced it. "Why are you here?" I asked, and I kept my tone calm on purpose. She blinked slowly. They turned me away." I didn't understand that sentence at first, like my brain refused to accept it. "Turned you away?" I repeated. "At the door." Her fingers tightened around the edge of the plate. "They said there wasn't enough space." I stared at her. "Space for what?" She looked at me like I'd asked why snow is cold. "For me." And that's when I noticed the gifts. All of them. Neatly lined up by the entryway, bags upright, tags still attached, tissue paper still fluffed like she couldn't stand the idea of them looking messy, even now. The gifts she'd been so proud of. The gifts we dropped off with her. Back home. My throat tightened. "Why are the gifts here?" Emma swallowed. They didn't want them." My chest went cold. "They told you to take them back?" I asked. She nodded once. I looked at her face, trying to keep mine steady, and asked the question that really mattered. "Why didn't you call me?" Her eyes flicked down. "My phone had died," she whispered. "I asked Grandma if I could use theirs. Like, the house phone." "And?" I asked, even though I already knew. "She said no," Emma said, and her voice cracked on the last word. "She said it would just make it harder. And you were busy." "Busy. Right." "And then Grandpa said I should just walk home," she added, like it was the most normal solution in the world. "Because it's not far." I just stared at her. It's not far when you're an adult who knows the neighborhood, when you're not carrying gift bags that dig into your hands, when you're not 11 and it's Christmas and every window you pass has people inside. "How long did you walk?" I asked. "Maybe 20 minutes," she said quietly. I didn't really know which way at first, because we always drive. Something sharp moved under my ribs and stayed there. I glanced back at the stove, then at the plate in front of her. "And this?" I said softly. "You tried to cook?" Her cheeks flushed like she'd been caught stealing. "I got hungry," she whispered. "And I wanted to, I don't know, make it feel like Christmas." That landed harder than the door turning away. "I watched a video," she added quickly. "I tried. It just burned." She pointed at the pan. "It's fine. I opened the window." The fact that she was trying to reassure me, like she was the problem, made my throat ache. I pulled a chair out and sat beside her. "Start from the beginning," I said gently. She took a breath that shook. "You dropped me off and I went right up," she said. "Like you told me." I nodded. Grandma opened the door and Emma's eyes slid away. Looked surprised. Like she forgot I was coming. My jaw tightened. Then Aunt Dana said, "Oh." Just, "Oh." Emma's mouth twisted. And Grandma said it was a full house. Not enough chairs. What about the cousins? I asked, already bracing. They were inside, she whispered. They could see me. She swallowed hard and pushed through anyway. Logan laughed and said my dress looked like a curtain. The word curtain came out bitter. And nobody stopped him? I asked carefully. Emma shook her head. Grandpa said, let's not start drama. I let out a short breath through my nose because dry humor is what happens when rage is too big to hold. Right, because letting an 11-year-old come inside would have been a real scene. Emma gave a tiny, miserable half-smile. It disappeared immediately. I tried to give Grandma her gift, she whispered. The one I made. My eyes snapped to her. The ornament? She nodded, and tears finally slipped out like her face got tired of pretending. I put her name on it, she said, and she didn't even touch it. She just said, not now. A sob hit her like a hiccup. She turned her face away fast, embarrassed by her own feelings like she was the one being inappropriate. I slid my arm around her shoulders and pulled her close. She leaned into me immediately, like she'd been holding herself upright on stubbornness alone. I'm sorry, she whispered into my sweater. No, I said, steady. You don't apologize for this. She sniffed. I ruined Christmas. You didn't ruin anything, I said. They did. She wiped her face with her sleeve and stared at the plate. I tried, she whispered. I really tried. And that was the whole heartbreak in one sentence. She tried to create Christmas for herself in an empty house because the people who were supposed to love her decided she didn't deserve a chair. I didn't shout. I didn't call my mother and start a screaming match. Emma didn't need to hear that. She didn't need to feel like she caused a war. So I swallowed it. Every sharp word. I held Emma a little tighter, and in my head, something clicked into place. I didn't make a scene. I took action. 5 hours later, their life started to fall apart. I wish I could tell you my parents became like this overnight. It would be comforting in a way, like they caught a virus called entitlement and woke up one morning unable to recognize their own granddaughter. But this wasn't new. It just finally had the audacity to show its face in public. My sister Dana was always the favorite. Not in the subtle parents love you differently way, in the openly distributed scoreboard on the fridge way. Dana was older, louder, easier for them. She was the kid they wanted. I was the kid who showed up later like an unexpected bill. When I was little, my mother used to say things like, "You're so much work." The way some people say, "This suitcase is heavy." Not cruelly, worse, casually, like it was a fact of nature, like needing care was a character flaw. By the time I was old enough to understand tone, I understood mine, burden. And then I got pregnant, young, unplanned. The father barely qualified as present for the part where you need an actual human being. He was around just enough to make promises and then vanish like smoke. I never walked into my parents' house and asked them to fund my life. I didn't have the energy for it. I was too busy being terrified. But they treated me like I'd already sent them an invoice. My father's first reaction was, "So what? We're supposed to pay for this?" My mother's was, "You're ruining this family." As if my pregnancy had personally set fire to their curtains. They bought me a onesie once. One. My mother held it up like she'd sponsored a small village. "See?" she told relatives. "We help her." Then she went back to her life. Dana, of course, played the part of concerned sister. She would show up with advice and disappear the second anything required actual effort. She'd cry when it made her look good. She'd talk about sacrifices she never made. I moved out. I raised Emma alone. I postponed college. I worked an office job because I needed steady hours and a paycheck that didn't bounce. I took evening classes when I could, the kind where you eat dinner out of a plastic container in your car and pretend that's normal. It wasn't glamorous, it was survival. And if I'm honest, survival suited me better than begging. The one person who didn't treat me like a mistake was my grandmother, Ruth. She never asked why I wasn't more careful. She never made me apologize for needing help. She just showed up in the ways she could. Grandma wasn't perfect. She was blunt. She was frugal to the point of comedy. She once told me, "If you buy something full price, you deserve what happens to you," like it was a moral principle. But she was love, in a family that treated love like a limited resource. As she got older, she developed leg issues, pain, weakness, the kind that makes short distances feel like mountains. She could still think clearly. She could still roast you with one sentence. But moving around became harder. And my parents? They acted like she was inconvenient. They'd call her to check in and then brag about it. They'd visit once a month, take a photo, and post it with captions like, "Family is everything." Then they'd leave and not come back. Dana was the same. If Grandma was a person, Dana forgot she existed. If Grandma was an inheritance, suddenly Dana cared deeply. I was the one who drove Grandma to appointments, the one who brought groceries, the one who learned how to help her safely so she wouldn't fall when she stood up. I even took a short caregiving course because I was tired of feeling like I was guessing with someone I loved. It saved money. It made me useful. It made Grandma feel less helpless, which mattered more than any certification. And the more time I spent with her, the more I noticed something uncomfortable. My parents treated Grandma the way they treated me, like a burden, like a task, like a thing you tolerate until you can go back to your real life. Meanwhile, Grandma helped them, financially, quietly, the way she did everything, without fanfare, without splashing it around. At some point, my parents moved into a house that everyone in the family referred to as the house Grandma gave them. That phrase became gospel. Grandma gave them the house. Grandma gifted it. Grandma wanted them to have space for family. My parents started speaking about it like it was theirs by divine right. And after they got it, they visited Grandma even less. It was almost impressive, the way they treated generosity like a completion stamp. Like once Grandma gave them something, she had no further value. Grandma, meanwhile, lived in a small rental by choice. She said it was easier, less to clean, less to worry about. She didn't want a big place to manage by herself. She liked comfort, not attention. And that's why Christmas mattered. Grandma couldn't join the big celebration this year. Her legs were worse. The idea of a crowded house and stairs and chaos was too much. My parents didn't offer to go to her. They didn't offer to bring dinner. They didn't even offer to FaceTime her until I suggested it. So I chose her. And I chose Emma too, by letting her have the big family Christmas she'd been dreaming of. My parents' house was always fancy and organized, the way Emma loved. Kids' friends invited, games, cookies, a cousin's sleepover that felt like a rite of passage. Emma put her whole heart into those gifts. She saved. She made things. She worried about what people would like. She was proud of it. She didn't mind me not coming because to her, it was still family. That's what made it so crushing when they told her she should celebrate with someone else. Not enough chairs. Not enough space. Not enough room for her. And while they sat around their table feeling satisfied with their perfect Christmas, they didn't know what was already starting to unravel. That night, I had 2 jobs: get my daughter back to herself, and keep my parents from doing any more damage while she was still bleeding on the inside. Emma wasn't dramatic about it. That was the problem. She moved around our kitchen like she was trying not to disturb the air, like she didn't deserve to take up space in her own house. I didn't lecture her about the stove. I didn't point at the burnt pan like it was Exhibit A and why you shouldn't cook alone. We could talk about safety later. Tonight, the bigger emergency was shame. So I did what moms do when they don't have the right words. I made hot chocolate and pretended I wasn't furious enough to chew through drywall. Extra marshmallows, because trauma is not the time to practice moderation. Emma sat at the table with her mug between her hands like it was the only warm thing left in the world. Every few minutes her eyes drifted to the gifts lined up by the door, still perfect, still unwanted. I kept catching myself thinking, I should drive over there. I should knock. I should make them say it to my face. And then I'd look at my daughter's shoulders, how tight they were, how small she'd made herself, and I'd swallow it, because I wasn't going to turn her night into a screaming match soundtrack. Then my phone buzzed. Grandma Ruth. Not a long, chatty call. Grandma Ruth didn't do long and chatty unless she was giving you advice you didn't ask for. She did check-ins. Practical, efficient. I answered and put it on speaker because my hands were busy and because Emma's whole face lifted just hearing the ringtone. Hey, Grandma, put me where I can see you, she said immediately. No hello. Grandma didn't waste time on greetings when she could be efficient with love. So I switched to video. Grandma appeared on my screen with her glasses on, and that look she got when she was about to correct someone's pronunciation. Emma leaned toward the phone like it was a window. Merry Christmas, Great-Grandma, she said, trying so hard to sound normal that it made my throat tighten. Grandma's face softened. Merry Christmas, sweetheart. Emma smiled. It lasted half a second. Then it wobbled, and the tears showed up anyway. Quiet, stubborn tears she didn't want anyone to see. Grandma didn't miss it. Grandma never missed it. What happened? She asked, calm but sharp, like her brain had already started putting pieces together. Emma glanced at me with that kid panic. Don't get anyone in trouble. And then she broke anyway, because truth doesn't stay trapped forever. They wouldn't let me in, she whispered. Grandma's expression went still. Who? Grandma and Grandpa, Emma said, and her voice cracked. They said there wasn't space, and they didn't take the gifts. Grandma blinked once, slow. The kind of blink that means I am choosing my next words carefully because I don't want to say something that ends in arson. Emma wiped her face fast. I tried to use their phone, she added, like she needed to justify herself. Mine had died. I asked. They said no. Grandma's mouth tightened. And you walked home? Grandma asked. Emma nodded. Grandpa said it wasn't far. Grandma didn't raise her voice. She didn't need to. She looked straight at my daughter through the screen and said, Sweetheart, you listened to me. You did nothing wrong. Nothing. Emma made a little sound like she wanted to climb inside those words and live there. Grandma continued, You were polite. You brought gifts. You showed up. If anyone should be ashamed, it's the people who shut a child out at their door. Emma's chin trembled. I pulled her closer with my arm, and she leaned into me like she'd been holding herself up on pride alone. Grandma's gaze flicked to me. Kate. Yes, I said, already braced. Her voice sharpened. I gave them that house so they'd have space for family. Space. For family. I didn't interrupt. I didn't steer. I didn't feed her lines. I just sat there, holding my child, letting Grandma connect her own dots. Grandma's eyes narrowed. And they used that space to turn my great-grandchild away. I felt my stomach drop, because when Grandma got quiet, people got consequences. I won't allow it, she said. Grandma, I started, automatically, because I wasn't trying to light a match near gasoline. No, she cut in. My legs hurt. That's all. My brain works. I know, I said softly. Grandma's voice went even calmer. I'm going to undo it. I blinked. Undo what? The house, she said. I stared at the screen. Grandma, you can't ungift a house. Grandma's lips twitched, barely. You'd be surprised what you can do when people don't read paperwork. It sounded like a riddle. It sounded like a promise. Emma sniffed and wiped her face again, trying to pull herself together like she hadn't just been told she didn't deserve a chair. Grandma softened toward her. Finish your cocoa, she ordered gently. And next Christmas, you'll be where you belong. Emma nodded, small and careful. We ended the call a minute later. Grandma told Emma she loved her. Grandma told me to lock my doors. Grandma never missed an opportunity to assume the world was full of criminals, including my parents. After that, I focused on the only thing that mattered, getting my daughter through the rest of the night without letting that shame set like concrete. We watched a movie. We sat under a blanket. Emma fell asleep in that exhausted way kids do when they've held themselves together for too long. And then, before midnight, before my brain could even finish processing Grandma's paperwork comment, my phone rang again. Mom. I answered, and she didn't even inhale first. What did you do? No hello. No, is Emma okay? Just pure, panicked rage. I held the phone away from my ear. What are you talking about? Don't play stupid, she snapped. Grandma called us. On Christmas. She's saying the house isn't ours and we have to move out. My stomach dropped, hard. What? I said, genuinely. You think this is funny? She shrieked. While we were all celebrating, you went over there to poison her against us. I didn't. You're a snake, she spat. You've always been jealous. You've always wanted what we have. I stared at the dark kitchen, at the burnt pan, at the gifts lined up like a silent witness. I don't know what Grandma told you, I said carefully. But I didn't plan anything. I didn't even know. Oh, please, my mother snapped. You've been circling her like a vulture. Something in me went cold and clean. My daughter came home tonight, I said, low. She was turned away at your door. She walked home alone with gifts you refused to take. There was a pause. Half a second of silence where I could almost hear her brain searching for a way to make that not matter. Then she hissed, Don't change topics. Of course. You excluded a child, I said. On Christmas. We didn't have enough chairs, she snapped. And she was fine. You're raising her to be dramatic, just like you. She stood outside your door, I said, each word controlled. And you wouldn't even let her use your phone. My mother's voice rose. You should have kept her with you then. You're the one who abandoned her. The audacity was almost impressive. And then she said it, like it had been sitting on her tongue for years, waiting for a reason. We should have excluded you a long time ago. Like Emma's Christmas was just collateral damage in a larger project, punishing me for existing. I said quietly, You're not going to rewrite what you did. My mother laughed, sharp and ugly. You think you've won? You think Grandma is stable? Then, in a voice that made my skin crawl, she added, We'll handle her. The line went dead. I stood in my kitchen, staring at my phone like it had turned into an animal. Grandma had said she would undo something. My mother was terrified. My daughter was asleep down the hall with tear tracks still faint on her face. And I still didn't understand how any of this was possible, only that something had started moving and my parents were already trying to grab the wheel. The next morning, I called Grandma Ruth. No answer. I called again. Nothing. That, by itself, didn't send me into a panic spiral immediately. Grandma was many things. Tech-savvy wasn't one of them. Sometimes she'd leave her phone in a drawer and forget the drawer existed. But it didn't sit right in my stomach. I tried again. Still no answer. Emma came into the kitchen rubbing her eyes, hair sticking up like she'd fought a pillow and lost. Did Great-Grandma call? She asked softly. No, I said, keeping my voice light. Not yet. Emma's mouth tightened. Is she mad at me? My heart clenched. No, baby. No, none of this is your fault. Emma nodded like she wanted to believe me, but shame doesn't disappear because you tell it to. We're going to go see her, I said. Okay. We'll bring her the cocoa mix she likes. Emma's face softened a little. Okay. We drove to Grandma Ruth's place mid-morning. It was quiet, like the world was still recovering from Christmas. I knocked, waited, knocked again. No answer. I tried calling her from the porch. Still nothing. Maybe she's sleeping, Emma offered. Maybe, I said, but my hand was already moving to my keyring. Grandma had given me a spare key for emergencies, and her definition of emergency included, if I don't answer my phone and you get annoying. I unlocked the door and stepped inside. The apartment was too quiet. Not old person napping quiet. Empty quiet. I moved through the living room, calling her name. No response. Then I saw what was missing. Her wheelchair wasn't by the wall where it always was. The blanket she used every night was gone from the chair. A small bag by the door. Gone. My breath caught. Emma's voice came from behind me, small. Where is she? I don't know, I said, and my voice sounded like it belonged to someone else. I walked outside, hands shaking now, and went straight to the neighbor across the hall. She opened the door in her robe, hair in a clip, that exact face people make when they're about to say something they know you won't like. Oh, honey, she said before I could even speak. Your mother was here. My stomach dropped. When? Early, she said. Like, morning early. I was taking my trash out. They had a car down front. Did Grandma go with them? I asked, and I hated how my voice sounded. Too controlled, too polite, like I was asking about a package delivery. The neighbor hesitated. They had her chair. Your mother was talking fast. Your grandmother didn't look happy. Did she say where they were taking her? I asked. The neighbor shook her head. No, I didn't hear that part. I'm sorry. Of course she didn't. People like my mother don't announce where they're taking you when you don't have a choice. I thanked the neighbor because I'm apparently the kind of person who says thank you while her life is imploding. Then I walked back into Grandma's apartment and stood there for half a second, trying to decide how to breathe. Emma was by the doorway, gripping the cocoa mix box like it was a weapon. Did they? She started. I don't know, I said. And then, because she's 11 and her brain goes places, I added immediately. She's alive. She's okay. We're going to find her. I did not believe my own calm voice. I just needed her to borrow it. I called my mom, straight to voicemail. I called again. Voicemail. I called my dad. Voicemail. I stood in the hallway outside Grandma's place, staring at my phone like if I glared hard enough it would start behaving. Emma tugged my sleeve. Maybe they took her to their house? That was the first sensible idea anyone had said all morning. So we drove. The whole way there, I kept checking my mirrors like the world had suddenly become unsafe in a way I couldn't name. Emma sat quietly, eyes fixed on her lap, and I could feel her trying to be good so I wouldn't fall apart. When we pulled into my parents' driveway, I didn't even turn the engine off the normal way. I just killed it and got out. I knocked. Hard. My mother opened the door like she'd been expecting me, and her face was already set for battle. Where is Grandma? I said. Her eyes narrowed. Lower your voice. I stared at her. Where is Grandma? She's fine, my mother snapped. And you're not barging in here to upset her. I'm not here to argue, I said, and my voice did that cold thing it does when I'm trying not to explode in front of a child. I'm here to see my grandmother. My mother stepped into the doorway like a bouncer. After what you did? I didn't do anything, I said, except come home to my kid sitting alone with burned food because you wouldn't let her inside. Don't start, my mother hissed. I'm not starting, I said. I'm finishing. Emma stood behind me, very still. My mother glanced at her and then looked away like eye contact might make her feel something. Your grandmother is resting. She doesn't need your drama. Then let her tell me that, I said. Let me hear it from her. My mother's lips pressed tight. No! That single word was the moment everything changed. Not because I expected my mother to be reasonable. I've met her, but because she was blocking me from even seeing Grandma. That's not family drama. That's control. I pulled my phone out again and dialed 911. My mother's face twisted. Are you serious? Yes, I said, and I didn't blink. I'm serious. She made a sound like I was embarrassing her, which, honestly, was a nice break from her usual hobby of embarrassing me. I told the dispatcher exactly what I knew. My grandmother was missing from her home. Her mobility equipment and belongings were gone. My mother had taken her early that morning, and my family was refusing to let me confirm she was okay or even speak to her. I didn't give a speech. I didn't theorize. I just gave facts. Emma's hand slid into mine while we waited. Small, cold, trusting. When the officers arrived, my mother immediately switched into her I pay taxes voice. Oh, good, she said brightly, like this was a neighborhood meeting. There's been a misunderstanding. The officer didn't smile. We need to see your grandmother. My mother's face tightened. She's resting. We still need to see her, he said. Same tone. Not rude. Not negotiable. My mother stalled just long enough to make my heart bang against my ribs. Then she stepped aside like she was being personally oppressed. Grandma was in the back room, in her wheelchair, blanket across her lap, eyes sharp. The second she saw me, something in my chest unclenched so hard it almost hurt. Relief hit first, then anger, right behind it. Emma made a small sound and moved forward before I could stop her. Grandma reached out and took her hand like she'd been waiting for that specific proof of life. There you are, Grandma said, voice rough. Emma nodded, tears already forming. I thought you were mad. Grandma's eyes flashed. I'm mad at the right people. One of the officers crouched down a little. Ma'am, are you okay? Are you here because you want to be? Grandma didn't hesitate. No! My mother jumped in. She's confused. Grandma turned her head slowly and said, If you interrupt me again, I'm adding it to the list. The officer looked back at Grandma. Do you want to leave? Yes, Grandma said. Now. My mother's mouth opened, closed, opened again. It was like watching someone realize their favorite puppet learned how to cut strings. The officers didn't lecture anyone. They didn't do a courtroom monologue. They just made space, literally and figuratively. They made it clear Grandma could leave. And when Grandma rolled past my mother, she didn't even look at her. That silence said more than any yelling. I got Grandma into my car. Emma climbed in beside her without being asked and held her hand like she was anchoring her to the planet. Grandma looked at me and said, Call my lawyer. Grandma called her lawyer. He agreed to see us that day. I drove. Her lawyer didn't dress it up. He looked at me and said, Here's what your family has been calling a gift. He slid a folder across the desk. The house isn't in your parents' names, he said. It's owned by Grandma's living trust. Your parents were listed as beneficiaries, meaning they were set to receive it after Grandma dies. But while Grandma is alive, she can change the beneficiaries. My stomach dropped. So they've been acting like it already belongs to them. They've been acting like a lot of things, Grandma muttered. Her lawyer didn't even blink. Grandma can also change how her other assets are distributed. Her savings, her accounts, all of it. Same idea. Beneficiaries can be updated. Grandma tapped the arm of her wheelchair. Good, because they don't get a reward for turning a child away at the door. He asked Grandma a few straightforward questions, calm, respectful, just confirming she understood what she was signing and that no one was pressuring her. Grandma answered like she was personally offended the world required proof she still had a brain. Then he printed what needed printing. Grandma signed. Witnesses signed. Pages were initialed. And just like that, the names my parents thought were carved in stone weren't. My name went where theirs used to be. Emma's future was protected right alongside it. Because Grandma wasn't just angry, she was deliberate. Emma sat close the whole time, quiet, holding Grandma's hand like she was afraid someone would drag her away again. When it was done, Grandma looked at her lawyer and said, "Now, I want them kept away from me." He nodded once, already reaching for another set of documents. "We'll put that in writing too, and we'll start the process to get them out of the house." Grandma turned her sharp gaze on me. "I gave them space," she said. "They used it to shrink a child." Emma's eyes filled, but this time she didn't look ashamed. She looked relieved. Grandma squeezed her fingers. "Next Christmas," she told her, "you're not standing outside anyone's door." Fast forward to next Christmas. Emma and I are in the house my parents used to call theirs. Not because I wanted some trophy, because Grandma wanted the truth reflected in paperwork. The place is worth about $350,000, and she moved in with us after everything went down. We made it actually livable for someone in a wheelchair, a ramp, wider doorways, grab bars, a bedroom on the main floor. Funny how not enough space magically turns into plenty of space when you're not using it to punish people. Grandma also had about $200,000 in savings. She changed the beneficiaries on all of it. Part went into an emergency cushion for her care. The rest went where she wanted it to go. A college fund for Emma and a future she doesn't have to beg for. My parents got exactly what they earned. Nothing. They tried calling, apologizing, blaming, switching the order like that changes the story. I don't answer. Emma's different now. Quieter in a calmer way, not the make myself small so I don't get rejected way. And Grandma, still sharp, still stubborn, still very pleased with herself. So tell me, did I go too far or not far enough? Let me know in the comments and subscribe for more.